At ArmorThane, your safety is our priority. We provide you with suits to wear, protect your arms, your legs, your body. We got gloves for your hands. Gloves should be worn at all times, whether you're dealing with the chemicals or the pigments or whatever. We've got protective booties for your feet. These not only protect your feet, they'll protect the surface that you're walking on, whether it be a new sprayed surface outside, an MCU trailer, a truck, whatever. Whenever you're using any of the grinding machines that we have, you need to have eye protection on. There's going to be days when you're working that's going to be noisy. We have earplugs for your ears. When you're in a dirty environment, we have dust masks when you're working with dirt, dust, to protect the air that you're breathing. A lot of the cleaning and stuff done at ArmorThane is done with acetone. We have that in a special plunger can. Any unused acetone drains back down into the can and keeps the fumes from the acetone to a minimum. We have a special charcoal mask that is to be used anytime that you're working with the acetone. Anytime we're working with isocyanates, we have a breathing pump that brings you pure, fresh air. We have a full face mask to protect you from the air that you shouldn't be breathing. A head sock for your head. When you're wearing this, we've got protective tear-offs so that you're at all times while you're spraying, your vision is clear, you can see what you're doing. And along with the fresh air system comes two special 50-foot breathing hoses to make sure that that air coming to you, in fact, remains fresh. ArmorThane provides all these items to you for your safety. We just ask you to be smart and use them. We ask you new dealers to remember that on average we have 2 days to do your training, whether we're training you to do bed liners, spray foam, high pressure, low pressure. So anything that you can have done for us before we get there gives us more time to do the training. You can have your power run, your air lines run, your 3-stage dryer hung. Whether you're using an equipment room or a trailer, you can have your pump in place, your drums can be in place, your color tanks can all be in place. All of this information is in your dealer setup guide, very easy to follow. We ask you to go through that and have as much of that done as you can have done before we arrive to do your training. Also, you're going to get several boxes of items. There's going to be a pick slip for that. We ask you to go through that pick slip, make sure you have everything. Hey Jeff, Jack Anderson from ArmorThane, how are you?
Doing good.
Hey, I like what you've done here. You've got all the stuff laid out so it's easy to find what we need to do our assembly this morning. You've got your air on the wall hooked up, your drums in place, tanks ready, line set. We can spend our time training rather than looking and unpackaging equipment. Thank you.
You bet.
Okay, Jeff, the next thing we got to do is we got to tap both of our drums. We're going to start with our black one here first. We're going to take and put these fittings in. We got a length of hose we're going to have to put in between the two fittings, and that's going to be our sight gauge. Once we get that all done, we're going to put it down on our drum cradle. And as we're putting these fittings in, we're going to put petroleum jelly around the threads. So it makes it easy for it to come out next time. The hardener or the ISO here, when it gets exposed to the air, crystallizes. So we want these fittings to be able to come out the next time you have to do a drum change. As we're tapping this drum, we want to be real careful because it could have pressure in it. If you can almost see the pressure in the drum on when the weather is very, very warm, you'd want to, before removing this bung, you'd want to take and drill a small hole, 1/8-inch hole in here, and relieve some of that pressure. Before you do any of this, though, however, you want to have your respirator on. So as the drum is relieving itself or we take the bungs out, we don't want to be breathing what's coming out of this drum.
Gotcha. like this one.
Okay, now we're going to take and put our drum into our drum cradle. Okay, we're going to tilt this down. This drum will remain in this position. It's a gravity feed system. Okay, we've got our hose cut to length. We've got 2 hose clamps on there. Before we put our hose on here, though, we want to get a sample. But before we allow the ISO to come into this area here, I want to show you that in here there's a Y strainer. This Y strainer needs to be taken out every time you put a new drum in. Flush it with acetone and put it back in. We're also going to take and put a little petroleum jelly on this to make this easy to come out the next time that you need to do this. And you can reinstall that in there. Okay, and what you have there is the ISO. We're going to set that back for later. Okay, next thing we're going to do, Jeff, is we're going to take and hook our resin side of our pump to our resin tanks. So we're going to hook in on the back side here. Over and hook it to the bottom over there. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to put this Y strainer into our transfer pump. In the middle here we're going to put an agitator, and to the side here we're going to put another bead holder, and the bead holders are what we put in all of our system wherever it breathes air, because the beads is what dries the air out, so that keeps our chemicals pure. Okay, we're going to put a little Teflon tape on these threads here before we put them into the pump. And we want our valve pointing straight down when we're done here. And we want to make sure it's closed. We're also going to take a sample out of here once we put this in the drum. Okay, let's set it off to the side. Go ahead and put our respirators on. We're going to remove our respirators. All right, we're going to take this piece of hose. After you get the clamps put on, we're going to come from our resin transfer pump Y strainer up here to our tanks. We're going to take these blue desiccant beads, pour them into this container. You notice as we're pouring them out, the beads are blue. When they turn pink, you're either going to want to regenerate them and or purchase new.
What's this for, Jack?
This here is a little trick we got in the field. We take a styrofoam cup and we just poke us a hole in the bottom and put it over our bead holder and pour them out. And we'll fill that clear to the top. And put your lid back on. Okay, Jeff, daily we want to make sure that both our air motor and our resin transfer pump gets a half a dozen drops of oil. We're going to go ahead and put some in here. We're going to place our motor into our agitator right here. Okay. Okay, and while we're here, we're going to go ahead and put a few drops of oil here in our transfer pump. Okay. We're going to attach our hose here to the fitting just before our air dryer. We're going to bring our hose over here and we're going to attach it to our air motor. And this drum has got 52 gallons of resin in it. This will need to be agitated a minute a gallon every 6 to 8 hours. So we're going to go ahead and get this process started while we're finishing up with the rest of our assembly of our system. We're going to open the valve wide open to flip the flippers out, and then we're going to gradually shut it down to a slower speed. Okay, Jeff, you're shutting off the air motor here as it's mixed for 52 minutes. I want you to take the hose and transfer it over to our transfer pump.
I need to turn on the valve.
I'm going to turn it. We want to make sure this valve is closed. We're going to turn that valve on just a little bit. And as we do, we're going to go ahead and take a sample out of our drum here. Okay, Jeff, we've heard the sample of the ISO that we took from our ISO drum and the sample of the resin from our resin drum. We're going to check and make sure our chemicals are good. We're going to check our ISO temperature. We want it a minimum of 85 degrees or warmer. We want our resin to be within 5 degrees. And we're okay on both. So we're going to take and put a cup on here. We want our ratio to be between 61 and 64, and what that means is for every 100 parts of resin, we want 61 to 64 parts of ISO, and that's where our product is going to harden properly. So in the cup here, let's take, we're gonna tear out our scale back to 0. The scale, by the way, is always going to come up to grams. Okay, so take your resin cup and pour in 100 grams of resin. And try to be as precise as you can. Okay. And then we're going to take another cup and put it on here, and our scale should automatically tear to 0. It does. Now we want to put in between 61 and 64 grams of ISO. There we go. And we're going to take our resin into the ISO. The resin is usually thinner than the ISO. That's why we do that. We've been doing a few field tips here today. Field tip is slip one cup inside of the other in case you happen to poke through that first cup. You don't have a mess. We're going to run our knife around the edge of our cup, getting all the material off there, and then we're going to start mixing it very quickly. And what we want here is we want a reaction time to be within around 15, 16 seconds, somewhere in there. When we feel the material start to tug on our knife a little bit, we're going to pull it up out of there, because we want to see is a material that's hard and shiny and no signs of foaming. And one other thing I like to do is I like to take my knife and cut into that and split it apart, and what we're looking for inside is kind of a tight, shiny material, no signs of foaming.
That's where you catch it. So that's good?
Good. Okay, Jeff, we're going to go ahead and hook our line set up to our pump here. You're going to notice that the fitting sizes are different, so there's no other way that we can mix them up. So we're going to hook our resin line to that side. Resin is always a blue line anyway. We'll hook up our ISO line, and it's a red line and a larger fitting. The electrical will only go on one way, so you want to make sure that it's turned and positioned and then screwed on very lightly, just with your thumbs. Okay? I'm going to remove this up here. Inside here we have a plastic ferrule We're going to want to slip this over here. Make sure we have our ferrule in place and tighten that up. Okay. Then I want you to run your power over. Plug it in. You plug this in, you notice we have a green, yellow light. That shows that we're in the neutral position, so whether we're on our local setting here or our remote setting at the gun, nothing happens because we are in the neutral mode. Electrical attached. Lay our gun up here on our tanks. You're going to attach the smaller hose to the resin tank there. And the way we're doing this is we need to recirculate or circulate chemical through our lines to get our lines full of material, and our new pumps need a 20-minute break-in time. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and purge all the air out of the lines. We're going to fill our red line with ISO. We're going to make sure our resin line is full of resin. Our machine is in a neutral position. With the switch triggered up, we have a solid green light that allows it either to operate in the remote or the local mode, depending on where we have this switch. Right now we're down on remote, so this is a switch that's going to control our pumps. When this is here, we're in the back in our neutral position and nothing happens. Okay, off to the right side here we have an OL light, or a red overload light. If the speed pump gets turned up too fast or our chemicals are too cold, this overload light will come on, and what it does is it shuts the system down. When this happens, you'll trigger this switch to the down position, and when you trigger it back up, it will eliminate that red light. On our local setting here, we would use our speed control here to control the speed of our pumps. That's how fast our chemical is moving through our lines. Or for the most part, we're going to be on our remote setting, which allows us to control the speed of our pumps out at the gun, which is where we're going to be doing that during the spray process. So we're going to go ahead and trigger our machine up to a solid green light. And with the switch down on the remote setting, we're going to move this switch here and our pumps are going to start to turn. With the green light on and our machine running, we're going to let it run in this position for about 20 minutes, and when that time is up, we'll come back and we'll take our hoses off of our respective tanks, hook them back to the gun, and we'll be ready to do our cup test. Our hoses are two different sizes. Our ISO hose is larger, and it's a red hose. You have the smaller hose and fitting and a blue hose. We'll attach our air feed over here to the air side of our gun. With this all done, we'll go ahead and power our machine back up. It's going to come back up with a green-yellow light. Prior to us coming into our spray area here, we have preset the regulator on the wall at our air drying system at about 85 psi, okay? So when we're getting ready to start the gun up, the first thing we're going to have our spray nozzle prepped, clean, ready to go, mixed tube in and everything else, and we're going to have that on here, okay? Open up the valves, turn on the knob, make sure that we have 2 full streams of material. If we don't have 2 full streams of material, we're going to shut off our flow of our material, close our valves, and we're going to take this 3/16 drill bit and we're going to run it into one port, twisting it in very carefully, pulling out whatever blockage that is, wiping this real clean, because if we pull it out of our resin side and immediately put it into our ISO side, we're going to create the blockage again. We need to make sure this is clean. Okay, what we did there is when you brought the 2 cups in, we recorded the temperatures of our material. We recorded them. Remember, we want to be within 5 degrees. We want the minimum temperature of our ISO or our amber cup at 85 degrees. We also have a recording here of our ambient temperature, which is 80 degrees, and our humidity, which is 28. So we're okay there on our range. We took and put the ISO or the hardener, the amber cup on the scale first. We weighed it out. We recorded that number into our calculator. We hit the divide button. We then put up our resin cup. We recorded that weight, entered that into the calculator and hit the equal sign, and we came up with 61.1, and our range on our material is, so the material is warm enough. Our ratio looks good, so the product is ready to spray. On our ArmorThane low pressure system, we have a aluminum sleeve. Into that sleeve we slip a mixing tube. This mixing tube needs to be changed at any time that the gun is either shut off on purpose or accidentally. This tube becomes a junk item and needs to be changed out. We have 2 air caps with our system. We have a number 2 air cap, as you can see, with 2 grooves in it. We have a number 1 air cap with a single groove. We have 2 diffuser discs. These air caps and diffuser discs are kind of set up dealer preference on actual what he likes as far as spraying. One we're going to set up today, we're going to use the thinner of the 2 diffuser discs and the number 2 air cap. We're going to screw that on to the end here. And a little tip for you guys out there in the field. Even though ArmorThane does not stick very well to this plastic cap, if you would go ahead and coat this area with a thin coat of petroleum jelly, it helps at cleanup time. We can go ahead and put our actual mix tube in there. Now this is the last thing that goes on our gun. We're going to be suited up, we're going to be ready to spray, everything's going to be ready to go. And one last time, we're going to open up the valves and turn on our pump speed, and we're going to check for 2 full streams of material coming out of the end of our gun. If we have these 2 full streams, we're suited up, we've got our air breathing system on, we're ready to go. So we know that nothing's going to happen on the end of that gun that's going to cause these streams to deviate from a full stream. We'll go ahead and put our cap on, plug in our air line, and we're going to spray. Be careful when you're cleaning the end of your gun. You do not want to saw on that with another piece of metal or anything else, because this is where our mix tube actually seals, and it's a seal here that keeps the material from leaking up inside of our sleeve. So the end of that gun is always cleaned with just a soft cloth and acetone. We're going to go ahead and screw our tip on. We're going to make sure that this screws up very tight. Hand tight only, but we want it real tight so that we know that we have a seal between the end of our manifold and our mixing tube. We're going to go ahead and put our air hose on up here. Now the first thing we're going to check is to make sure that we have air. In this position here, we're ready to spray, but if we forgot to turn the air on in our equipment room or our trailer, wherever our machine is, there's no sense in turning anything else on here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and turn on our air. We're going to open our 2 valves, and we're going to turn our gun on. Let it spray 1001, 1002, 1003. Now we could be spraying once we know that all the material coming out of the end of our gun is in fact properly mixed in the mix tube. Okay, we're going to start up our gun here. The first thing we're going to do after we've got our tip and everything on is we're going to spray into a bucket or a container for 3 seconds. Make sure the material coming down the mix tube has been properly mixed. The first panel we're going to go to is our tailgate. We're going to go ahead and spray 2 coats on this panel. If we have a problem or an issue with our material drying, we've just got a tailgate sprayed rather than a whole bed liner. It's a lot easier to go ahead and repair a smaller panel than it is a whole bed liner. 1 coat's going to go on. Immediately following that's going to be a 2nd coat. We're trying to build 15 to 20 second set time into our spray process. So when we go to the walls, we're going to put 3 coats on the walls, 1 coat at a time, allowing 10 to 15 seconds in between the coats. We're going to drop down to the floor and do 3 to 4 coats on the floor, again building 15 seconds into our spray process. Okay, we're going to hit our air purge valve, purging our gun, shutting off our air, closing our air purge valve. Now, we want to go ahead and remove our tip. As I said, our mix tube at this point in time is no longer useful, so we'll go ahead and discard of it into our garbage. Now, we have run air through our resin side of our manifold, purging our sleeve. So before we put the gun away, we want to make sure that we refill that cavity with material so that it's ready to spray the next time that we need to use the gun. So again, we're going to open our valves, and quickly we're going to turn on our flow of material or our pump speed control. We got 2 full streams. We're going to go ahead and shut it off, close our valves, and always when we wipe on our gun, we're going to wipe with a straight down motion so that we don't wipe resin into ISO or ISO into resin, and wipe underneath the end. And in this position here, our gun is ready to be put away for the evening. We would place a large ball of petroleum jelly on the end of the gun and screw a nightcap on, and we would hang our gun in an upward position so that no material flows up there while the gun is not being used.